Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in First Chronicles chapter 4, verse 5 through chapter 5, verse 17. Asher, the father of Tekoa, had two wives, Helah and Nara. Nara bore him Ahuzim, Hepher, Temeni, and Hashatari. These were the sons of Nara. The sons of Helah: Zereth, Zohar, Ethnan, and Koz, who was the father of Anab, Hazobeba, and the clans of Aharhel, the son of Haram. Jabez was more respected than his brothers. His mother had named him Jabez, for she said, "I experienced pain when I gave birth to him." Jabez called out to the God of Israel, "If only you would greatly bless me and expand my territory. May your hand be with me. Keep me from harm so I might not endure pain." God answered his prayer. Caleb, the brother of Shula, was the father of Mehir, who was the father of Eshton. Eshton was the father of Bethrapha, Paseah, and Tehina, the father of Ir-Nahash. These were the men of Rechah. The sons of Kenaz: Othniel and Sariah. The sons of Othniel: Hathath and Meonothai. Meonothai was the father of Ophrah. Sariah was the father of Joab, the father of those who live in Ge-Harashim, who were craftsmen. The sons of Caleb, son of Jephneh: Eru, Elah, and Nam. The son of Elah: Kenaz. The sons of Jehalelel: Ziphah, Tiriah, and Asarel. The sons of Ezra: Jether, Mered, Epher, and Jalon. Mered's wife, Bethiah, gave birth to Miriam, Shammai, and Ishbah, the father of Eshtemoa. His Judahite wife gave birth to Jared, the father of Gedor, Heber, the father of Soko, and Jekuthiel, the father of Zanoah. These were the sons of Pharaoh's daughter, Bithiah, whom Mered married. The sons of Hodiah's wife, the sister of Nahum, the father of Keilah, the Garmite, and Eshtemoa, the Maacathite. The sons of Shimon: Amnon, Rina, Ben-Hanan, and Tilon. The descendants of Ishi: Zoheth and Ben-Zoheth. The sons of Shelah, son of Judah: the father of Lekah, Lada, the father of Merishah. The clans of the linen workers at Beth-Ashbah: Joachim, the men of Kozabah, and Joash and Seraph, both of whom ruled in Moab, and Joshbelehem. This information is from ancient records. They were the potters who lived in Netaim and Gedera. They lived there and worked for the king. The descendants of Simeon: Nemuel, Jamin, Jareb, Zerah, Shaul, his son Shalom, his son Mibsam, and his son Mishma. The descendants of Mishma: his son Hamuel, his son Zachar, and his son Shimei. Shimei had 16 sons and 6 daughters, but his brothers did not have many sons, so the whole clan was not as numerous as the sons of Judah. They lived in Beersheba, Moladah, Hazar Shul, Bilhah, Ezem, Tolad, Bethuel, Hormah, Ziklag, Beth Markaboth, Hazar, Susam, Bethbiri, and Sharaim. These were their towns until the reign of David. Their settlements also included Etam, Ain, Rimmon, Toshin, and Ashan, 5 towns. They also lived in all the settlements that surrounded these towns as far as Baal. These were their settlements. They kept genealogical records. Their clan leaders were Meshabab, Jamlech, Joshash, son of Amaziah, Joel, Jehu, son of Joshabiah, son of Sariah, son of Asiel, Elioenai, Jacobah, Jeshoiah, Asaiah, Adiel, Jesmiel, Benaniah, Ziza, son of Shippi, son of Alon, son of Jediah, son of Shimri, son of Shemaiah. These who are named above were the leaders of their clans. Their extended families increased greatly in numbers. They went to the entrance of Gedor, to the east of the valley, looking for pasture for their sheep. They found fertile and rich pasture. The land was very broad, undisturbed, and peaceful. Indeed, some Hamites had been living there prior to that. The men whose names are listed came during the time of King Hezekiah of Judah and attacked the Hamites' settlements, as well as the Munites they discovered there, and they wiped them out to this very day. They dispossessed them, for they found pasture for their sheep there. 500 men of Simeon, led by Pelatiah, Neriah, Raphiah, and Uzziel, the sons of Ishi, went to the hill country of Seir, and defeated the rest of the Amalekite refugees. They live there to this very day. The sons of Reuben, Israel's firstborn. Now he was the firstborn, but when he defiled his father's bed, his rights as firstborn were given to the sons of Joseph, Israel's son. So Reuben is not listed as firstborn in the genealogical records. Though Judah was the strongest among his brothers, and the leader descended from him, the right of the firstborn belonged to Joseph. The sons of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi, the descendants of Joel, his son Shemaiah, his son Gog, his son Shimei, his son Micah, his son Raiah, his son Baal, and his son Bera, whom King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria carried into exile. Bera was the tribal leader of Reuben. His brothers, by their clans, as listed in their genealogical records, their leader Jael, Zechariah, and Bela, son of Azaz, son of Shema, son of Joel. They lived in Aroer, as far as Nebo and Baal Meon. In the east, they settled as far as the entrance to the desert that stretches to the Euphrates River, for their cattle had increased in numbers in the land of Gilead. During the time of Saul, they attacked the Hagrites and defeated them. They took over their territory in the entire eastern region of Gilead. The descendants of Gad lived near them in the land of Bashan as far as Salecah. They included Joel, the leader, Shapham, the second in command, Janai, and Shaphat in Bashan. Their relatives, listed according to their families, included Michael, Meshullam, Sheba, Jorai, Jachin, Zia, and Eber, 7 in all. These were the sons of Abihail, son of Huri, son of Jaroah, son of Gilead, son of Michael, son of Jeshishiah, son of Jado, son of Buz. Ahi, son of Abdiel, son of Guni, was the leader of the family. They lived in Gilead and Bashan and its surrounding settlements, and in the pasture lands of Sharon, to their very borders. All of them were listed in the genealogical records in the time of King Jotham of Judah, and in the time of King Jeroboam of Israel. So, more names. Yeah, great. The David Guzik had an interesting point about chapter 4. You have this character named Jabez, mentioned in chapter 4, verses 9 and 10, who was more respected than his brothers. And his mother named him Jabez, for she said, I experienced pain when I gave birth to him. And Jabez called out to the God of Israel, if only you would greatly bless me and expand my territory, may your hand be with me, keep me from harm, so I might not endure pain. And God answered his prayer. Now, this is the only time we hear about Jabez in the entirety of the Old Testament. And it's simply this guy who was more respected than his brothers. So it's kind of neat that he was outstanding enough in his character that he warranted this extended mention in the book of Chronicles, given that the entirety of most people's lives are summed up as son of in Chronicles. Yeah. And you also have things like wars that are mentioned kind of offhand here, that like in chapter 4 verse 43, they defeated the rest of the Amalekite refugees. It's just kind of mentioned offhand, and you really do need to pull in other pieces of scripture for context on these wars. If you're just I know sometimes people get lazy in oh in selecting scripture to reinforce some shallow point that that God isn't just, and He orders um, people to do war in the Old Testament. But what you really miss with offhand messages, offhand um, summaries of these conflicts is the hundreds of years of idolatry and child sacrifice and sexual immorality that was conducted prior to these wars. So, yeah, that's what I'd say. I was thinking how we like to sometimes say, oh, God's not just for ordering a particular people group um, to wipe out those who are committing, drive out or wipe out those who are committing idolatry and sexual sin and such. Um, but I imagine when we get on the other side and we realize how deeply involved God is in carrying on our very existence, we'll be surprised at how long He let us continue with our evil acts. So, Acts 25. Oh, also, feel free to make fun of me for my horrible mispronunciation of names in Chronicles. Acts 25, verses 1 through 27. Now, 3 days after Festus arrived in the province, he went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. So the chief priests and most prominent men of the Jews brought formal charges against Paul to him, requesting him to do them a favor against Paul. They urged Festus to summon him to Jerusalem, planning an ambush to kill him along the way. Then Festus replied that Paul was being kept at Caesarea, and he himself intended to go there shortly. So he said, let your leaders go down there with me, and if this man has done anything wrong, they may bring charges against him. After Festus had stayed not more than 8 or 10 days among them, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he sat on the judgment seat and ordered Paul to be brought. When he arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many serious charges that they were not able to prove. Paul said in his defense, I have committed no offense against the Jewish law, or against the temple, or against Caesar. But Festus, wanting to do the Jews a favor, asked Paul, are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and be tried before me there on these charges? Paul replied, I am standing before Caesar's judgment seat, where I should be tried. I've done nothing wrong to the Jews, as you also know very well. If then I am in the wrong and have done anything that deserves death, I'm not trying to escape dying, but if not one of their charges against me is true, no one can hand me over to them. I appeal to Caesar. Then, after conferring with his council, Festus replied, you have appealed to Caesar. To Caesar you will go. After several days had passed, King Agrippa and Bernice arrived at Caesarea to pay their respects to Festus. While they were staying there many days, Festus explained Paul's case to the king to get his opinion, saying, There's a man left here as a prisoner by Felix. When I was in Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews informed me about him, asking for a sentence of condemnation against him. I answered them that it was not the custom of the Romans to hand over anyone before the accused had met his accusers face to face, and had been given an opportunity to make a defense against the accusation. So after they came back here with me, I did not postpone the case, but the next day I sat on the judgment seat and ordered the man to be brought. When his accusers stood up, they did not charge him with any of the evil deeds I had suspected. Rather, they had several points of disagreement with him about their own religion, and about a man named Jesus, who was dead, whom Paul claimed to be alive. Because I was at a loss how I could investigate these matters, I asked if he were willing to go to Jerusalem and be tried there on these charges. But when Paul appealed to be kept in custody for the decision of His Majesty the Emperor, I ordered him to be kept under guard until I could send him to Caesar. Agrippa said to Festus, I would also like to hear the man myself. Tomorrow, he replied, you will hear him. So the next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with great pomp and entered the audience hall, along with the senior military officers and the prominent men of the city. When Festus gave the order, Paul was brought in. Then Festus said, King Agrippa, and all you who are present here with us, you see this man about whom the entire Jewish populace petitioned me both in Jerusalem and here, shouting loudly that he ought not to live any longer. But I found that he had done nothing that deserved death, and when he appealed to His Majesty the Emperor, I decided to send him. But I have nothing definite to write to my lord about him. Therefore, I have brought him before you all, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after this preliminary hearing I may have something to write. For it seems unreasonable to me to send a prisoner without clearly indicating the charges against him. I apologize for the initial confusion. To me, it seemed very, very similar to what we had read in the last chapter with Felix, that was happening to Paul again. But a couple of things I'd just like to bring up here. So Felix keeps Paul in custody for 2 years, and he arrives, well, he's still there when Festus succeeds Felix. And the Jews, 2 years later, are still trying to assassinate Paul, so they want to summon him to Jerusalem for another ambush along the way. So they're still pretty charged about this whole thing, even 2 years later, which is an immense amount of hatred. Yeah, crazy to me that it survived that 2 year period. But I do suppose that Paul wrote letters during this time as well, just given that that's what we have a lot of the New Testament being letters from Paul. Yeah. I wonder if Festus hadn't heard about this plot against Paul, because this was clearly communicated to the centurion that there was a plot to ambush Paul along the way, and you ended up with 200 plus soldiers guarding Paul to get him to where he's at now, and they want to move him again now. It just seems, for that reason, it seems kind of slimy from Festus that it's like, hey, I want to move you to Jerusalem, and Paul's like, I don't want to die unnecessarily here. I appeal to Caesar, which that's a long trip. So, yeah. And then you have Agrippa, which I'm not sure who he is, but I know that he's some sort of ruler. But he hears Paul's case too. Okay, carrying on. Psalm chapter 5, verses 1 through 12. Listen to what I say, Lord. Carefully consider my complaint. Pay attention to my cry for help, my King and my God, for I am praying to you. Lord, in the morning you will hear me. In the morning I will present my case to you, and then wait expectantly for an answer. Certainly you are not a God who approves of evil. Evil people cannot dwell with you. Arrogant people cannot stand in your presence. You hate all who behave wickedly. You destroy liars. The Lord despises violent and deceitful people. But as for me, because of your great faithfulness, I will enter your house. I will bow down toward your holy temple as I worship you. Lord, lead me in your righteousness because of those who wait to ambush me. Remove the obstacles in the way in which you are guiding me, for they do not speak the truth. Their stomachs are like the place of destruction, their throats like an open grave, their tongues like a steep slope leading into it. Condemn them, O God, May their own schemes be their downfall. Drive them away because of their many acts of insurrection, for they have rebelled against you. But may all who take shelter in you be happy. May they continually shout for joy. Shelter them so that those who are loyal to you may rejoice. Certainly you reward the godly, Lord. Like a shield, you protect them in your good favor. And finally, Proverbs chapter 18, verse 19. A relative offended is harder to reach than a strong city, and disputes are like the barred gates of a fortified citadel. Need some sort of extended siege to get through them. Well, thank you for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.